1996 was a year of great changes for the Ferrari house. The decision to have Michael Schumacher join the Maranello team denoted a will not to rest on past glories. But another event upset the house of the Prancing Horse during that year, the retirement of the flagship F512M, the direct heir of the 1984 Testarossa, now replaced by the incredible 550 Maranello. With 550 Maranello, the Ferrari board, presided over by Luca Cordero of Montezemolo, decided to change strategy, leaving behind the technical excess of the 12-cylinder in rear position and going back to the concept of comfortable and enjoyable GT, which could be driven by gentleman drivers instead of aspiring racing drivers. After the spectacular presentation at the Nürburgring, the new Maranello GT flagship was produced for 6 years, before passing the baton to its evolution, the 575M Maranello, that was produced up until 2006. The only non-standard productions were the 1998 Michael Schumacher edition. Only 13 units were realized, all according to the characteristics of the driver's personal 550. The 1999 WSR World Speed Record, 33 units were produced to celebrate the record broken by the 550 by reaching the highest average speed for a production car during a 24-hour race. The 2000 Maranello Barchetta Pininfarina, 448 units were produced. The 550 Maranello's spot in the Ferrari genealogy is undoubtedly relevant because there is no car like it. That can be considered a recall of the past, not only from a stylistic point of view but also from a technical ideal and a perceptual one. Analyzing the design of the 550, the most striking aspect surely is the long front hood. Despite its size, the big fixed headlights and the front air vent create an effect of natural force induction, and a full hood scoop that enhanced the car's soft but aggressive and almost feline-like shapes. From the sides, the timeless Pininfarina design is remarkable. On the second page of the user handbook there's a drawing of the side that, without the real world as a background, no perspective, no interference of lights or glares, makes us understand the beauty of this car and the idea behind it. The pencil marks by the hairs of young Farina are even more evident, like its rear side that looks like a rocket whose head starts from the car door and goes all the way through the back up to the tail. This stylistic choice might even appear to be the negative counterbalance of the air vents placed in the same position on the 288 GTO. The only controversial aspect from a proportion point of view is the extremely long front of the hand, 11 cm longer than the rear one, but necessary to the car's aerodynamics and to hold the engine compartment. The overall length is 4 meters 55, 1 meter 93 width, 1 meter 27 height, and a 2.5 meter wheelbase. With a little bit of malice, it's easy to believe that those exceeding 550 mm in the car's length are not a coincidence, but rather an homage to its name, which, as usual, comes from the cubic centimeter of the engine displacement. The aesthetic of the 550 Maranello is, overall, stylistically closer to its ancestors from the 50s and 60s rather than those that were made in the following decades. From an ideal point of view, it can be considered a heir to the 275 GTB, but its thin C-pillars, which remind us of the 250 GT Berlinetta Lusso, make the car features and its upper side appear lighter, so that the technical volume of the vehicle is optically enhanced. On the sides, the slender silhouette and the Berlinetta typical proportions stand out, the latter marking the comeback of the front V12 more than 20 years after the 365 Daytona, which lets off its heat from the slits on the fenders, whose shape and number are an explicit homage to those of the great 250 GTO. On the top left of the powerful sides there is a little vent that allows air to flow to the transmission oil cooler, while on the right there's a lid that covers the fuel filler. The silhouette of the 550 ends with an exquisite comeback, which holds a small spoiler in the middle. This is another reference to a stylistic concept we have already seen in the past, but not in the Maranello house, rather in one of its ancestors, Alfa Romeo. The TZ and TZ2 both had an even more accentuated K-tail with the tallest central part merging with the rear window. Now, after a stylistic analysis of the numerous elements that form the 550 Maranello, it's easy to understand why this car is so important, so modern, but at the same time so ancient, with many references that characterize it and make it unique. The double round tail lights are another reference to tradition, while the simple and clean-looking star-shaped rims are harmoniously integrated to the car design, so that they received the prize for Most Beautiful Rims in the World in 1996. Both when it's parked and when it's in motion, the 550 is always magnificent, and Maranello is a particularly suiting color. From above, we can't notice the indentations on the sides, and this makes us understand that we can enjoy the space we have in the cockpit. The small handle is placed quite low, maybe to avoid ruining that element of design from which start the rear sides of the vehicle. Once we open the door, we find ourselves inside a classic luxury GT. Not big, but just right, perfect in size, and in its balance between comfort and sport. Everything is wonderfully analogic, starting from the round steering wheel with a nice grip, and one function only, the one it was crafted for, which anticipates the two blinker switches. Together with the AC controls, they are the least precious element inside this purebred Sport GT. The equipment is exactly what each generation of sport car lovers has dreamed of seeing and touching. Big round analogic control panel, complete and easy to read, with only two small digital displays. On the side, three little tools help us keep track of the temperature and liquid pressure, a choice that clashes with the fashion of the last 15 years, which deprived the drivers of those tools that help them evaluate in real time the vehicle parameters. There are many round shapes inside the 550. From the vents to the equipment, the buttons and the magical sphere of the gear shift shaped like an aluminum cloche that allows the metal of its stick and its gear to make an incomparable sound each time we switch gear. It's hard to move our focus away from this sound, even though there are so many more noteworthy luxury elements that fully characterize the 550 Maranello. Such elements are the beautiful and comfortable electric Connolly leather seats, the simple door panels with their airplane-like handles, the tall but not cumbersome central tunnel that never fails to make us feel comfortable. We have a great visibility in each direction, and this allows us to enjoy the wonderful view each time our eyes fall on the three arms on the long hood, or on the beautiful drop-shaped rear view mirrors that shows us the rear sides. The trunk isn't very wide, but inside the cockpit there's always a tilted rear shelf, designed to hold a set of custom-made schedoni luggage, thanks to its bands. If the second page on the user handbook allows us to get a taste of the 550 design, on the first one there's an X-ray illustration of the car where we can fully understand what's under its skin. The first thing we notice is the engine compartment full of mechanical components, so we get a clear explanation on the reasons why this hood is so prominent. The engine, code F133, is a 65 degrees V12 superquadro. It descends from that of the 456 GT, but it's lighter and more powerful. The drawing of the variable sweep decks and the valves comes from the 1991-1992 Championship F1 Ferrari engines. The McPherson strut ensures the car's stability thanks to its arms, coil springs, its electric-controlled gas shock absorbers, and its entire roll bar. The magnesium 18-inch wheels with 8.5 and 10.5-inch width are wrapped by two 55mm tires on the front and two 95mm tires on the back. The aluminum, steel, and ferrum body panels are welded on the tubular 550 stiff chassis that allow the two materials to be welded. The car aerodynamics was enhanced by placing it in a wind tunnel for 4,800 hours. For this reason, it has a 0.33 CD. Even its flat underbody was carefully studied. But the most exciting aspect of this car is undoubtedly its dynamic behavior. What immediately drags the driver's attention is inevitably the V12, that transmits its 485 horsepower at 7,000 rpm to the rear wheels by going through the 6-gear manual transaxle transmission that distributes the weight on the two axles. The maximal torque corresponds to 563 Nm at 5000 rpm, but these numbers aren't enough to explain the sensation that one gets from the 550. We immediately feel a high torque even at its minimum, so there's no surprise in finding out through an analysis of its performances that there are 400 Nm already at 1000 rpm. These results, which we can obtain also by using a variable back pressure relief valve with the exhaust bypass valves on the rear silencers, make the engine incredibly agile, a crucial aspect for a superlative driving experience. The steering wheel has a progressive electric servo system that wonderfully balances comfort and sport. The clutch is easy to manage, just like the brakes, which are strong but adjustable. The gas pedal, just as tough as those of the supercars of the past, perfectly aligns to the necessity to control the car power, thus contributing to a deeply engaging and instinctive driving experience. It's an easy car, just as much as it's easy to trust, so maybe it's a good thing it has an electric traction control system. Just like the then Ferrari technical director Amedeo Felisa said in 1996, this electric interference of the TCS had the purpose of getting a better performance rather than taming the car. Anyway, this attempt to tame the car's power is something we can control thanks to the sport button on the dashboard, which can also be fully deactivated. What the car makes us feel while driving is definitely not filtered, but the feeling we have is that of something soft, delicate, not rough. Even despite its wild strength and its soundtrack that, at least in this model, which has super sprint silencers, is surely engaging and quite audible from the cockpit at any speed. The sound would be almost meek with standard silencers. After all, this 550 is a true GT that allows us to use it much more than it was possible with the Testarossa and its ancestors. The suspension is accurate and efficiently balances out the irregularities of the road. The seats ensure comfort, and while driving we have a feeling of control and safety of a great racer. This feeling is also due to the self-ventilated drill disc brakes with 4-way valve calipers, which are 330mm wide on the front and 310mm on the back, and that manage to balance the car's 1,690 kg. The weight doesn't give us a sensation of lack of coherence between dynamic reaction and actual mass, unlike other more recent cars. The 550 is agile and predictable, almost reassuring for a 485 horsepower V12. These sensations are what makes this car unique, much more than the numbers defining its performance. It's not the node to 100 km/h acceleration in 4.4 seconds or its maximum speed of 320 km/h that make us fall in love while driving it, but its ability to make the driver engaged with its reliable chassis, its comfort, the connection given by the gas pedal and the alchemy that we get together with the elasticity of the engine and the asset that allows us to play with the weight balance as we please. This is all enhanced by another action that, in this car, becomes magic, changing gears. The 6-gear transmission is basically the latest evolution of something that has represented Maranello for generations. Using its round polished aluminum knob that smoothly moves in the gear shift is pure poetry. We need to wait for the gears to warm up, otherwise the shift is slower than the quick RPM drop due to the frictions in the V12, but once the right temperature is reached, we'll hear the gears clacking sound and we get the most exciting analogic driving experience that we can get. The 550 Maranello is the perfect car to drive. It feels like we have known her forever, and it's exactly what our generation always expected from a sport GT. It's the perfect compromise between sport and comfort. It doesn't have many souls, just one nature and one personality, which is fantastic. Front V12, manual transmission with gear selector, timeless design with stylistic references to cars of the previous decades. The 550 is an example of modern classicism, both in style and driving. When I look at it or think about it, and its shape, its style, I think about the Roman style inspired by the golden ratio. She's an example of beauty, purity, performance, technology and personality. Would it be possible to give it more? Maybe, but it would be too much. The 550 simple style is the result of compromising, and it makes us think about the possibilities offered by the excessive complexity of more modern cars, with many settings that allow them to have many different souls. Is there anything wrong in having a unique and defined soul? In a society as complex as ours, it's hard to express one's opinion, because we never know what to expect or who will be offended by what we say. Perhaps we should be more like the 550, more straightforward in the way we look for our identities and goals, more understanding towards the others, while respecting them because they too had the courage and the strength to find out their identity. In the past, when we bought a car, we had to make some decisions to make it closer to our desires. The equipment, the color, or, if available, the presence or absence of the roof. We basically could decide the dress, the shoes, or the hat, but the soul was always the same. Specific identities are important. That's why we collect historical cars, because they have their own personality. If what we have now are cars without a soul because their only purpose is to satisfy all of our wishes, what will be the point of collecting them? They'll all be the same. Other Ferrari, even younger than this one, have style references to those Berlinettas of the 50s and the 60s. But more than this, the 550 Maranello manages to evoke the definition of a soul that today is probably missing from contemporary car manufacture, which adapts to the users while putting its personality aside. And now that we think about it, maybe this is not just an issue found in cars.